Welcome to the Mystic Hour with Clare Stone and Nathaniel Warren.
Welcome, everyone, to another week, another episode of the Mystic Hour. And this week is a very special episode. If you are watching on YouTube, which of course we always upload this episode onto, you will already know that this is an edition of our Mystical Chats. The Mystical Chats are when me, your host Nathaniel Warren, joined as always by Clare Stone in the studio. We get to talk about whatever we want to, essentially. I get to pose you loads of questions that I've been thinking of over the month. And it's a lot of fun. It's nice to ponder, I think. I think with these questions in particular this week, it's less, I don't want to say well thought out, but it's more just things that have popped into my mind that I've wanted to ask you.
Okay.
So it should be quite a fun episode. So I've got a bunch of notes on my phone. I think it's just a great place to start by getting straight into it. So the first one, quite a funny one, right? Obviously, there are loads of people that go out and search for spirits, for ghosts, ghost hunters, if you will. What do you make of this, right? And if you were to advise someone to go out and look for spirit, what would you advise them to do? Like, is there any, I doubt you would have had any technology because you would never need it, obviously. But is there anything that you think there might be a bit of truth behind?
Yes, weirdly, somebody asked me this question a couple weeks ago, a client of mine, because they wanted to go on a little ghost hunt.
Right.
I was like, oh, God. I was like, now you're going to be coming back to me in 6 months saying, I'm haunted and I can't get rid of it. Yeah. That's what it's like. Yeah, like for me, if I went on a ghost hunt, like I'd be fine. Yeah. Like it's easy peasy. Like you go in and say, yeah, they're stood in the corner or whatever. You know, sometimes people have technology as well to help them with it. For me, if I was going on a ghost hunt, I'd protect myself like to the max.
Right.
Because the thing is, spirits will cling to you. So, you know, some places you go to might not have anything in there and you've got someone there kind of going, heightening the energy, thinking, oh my God, there's someone here watching us. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're actually in the next room. Like, I can feel them in the next room. They're not anywhere near here. So yeah, I would protect yourself if you are. So that means, for instance, I don't wear anything like jewelry bits and pieces because it will attach to that's like sentimental to you. They love that. Crystals, that type of thing. If you've got them in your pocket, your handbag, get rid of them.
What about like crosses and stuff like that?
Crosses aren't too bad. Anything spiritual like that is okay.
Right.
Even if you're not religious, a lot of spirits don't like them because they feel like, oh, you're going to send me to the other side. Right. Because a lot of spirits, like in haunted houses, are what I call like they're in limbo. They're in the in-between. So they're not like what we necessarily would say is the other side or heaven. Yeah. They're not even necessarily like a demon or in hell or whatever. They're in between. So that means they want to cling to you. They want to draw down on your energy. They want to play games. So yeah, they don't like crucifixes, anything with saints on or got anything godly or Jesus like. Right. So yeah, they're not into that. But so I might wear one of those. But yeah, just try and be as clear as you possibly can. Also, don't ever go to a ghost hunt if you're depressed or down. Right. Because that energy again will draw down. They love it. They feed off of low mood spirit, even in your own home as well. Like sometimes you'd be down and think, oh, why is it getting worse? I'm like, because you've probably got a spirit that's living in your house that's drawing down on that energy. Right. So I'm always like, be in a nice positive mood. Happy, you've got no issues going on. Don't wear anything that's it's going to attach to or cling to, and you should be fine. Also, don't call its name as well. Yeah. Call in a spirit's name, you're invoking it. You're just making it manifest even more, and it can upset them too. You get some spirits in haunted houses that are really lovely and nice, but you're goading them into an argument. So they're going to be like, I'm not playing nice now. You're in my house. You're calling my name. I'm here peacefully living my life. I don't want you messing around. So it's a bit like a seance or like a Ouija board. Like, you know, I said before in the show about Ouija boards, you're kind of, bringing out the bad in spirit, not the good in spirit. So like when I do readings, I don't go, oh, is Sam here? Or are you here? Are you going to come through? I'm like, whoever's here is here. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Then I will do the reading. Whatever they're telling me, I will tell you. If they don't tell me anything, then that's it. We leave it alone. That's why people say to me, oh, have you got a name for them? And I'm like, if they don't tell me a name, I'm not going to ask them for a name. Right. Now and again, I might do if it's something really serious, but I will not ask for a name just because it's manifesting something bad. You're like, you're just like upsetting them. when you do that. If you walk into like a haunted house and you're just casual, not really asking them anything, you just think, can I sense something? That's fine. But I think if you get these stupid people that like goad them into it, and then you're running around screaming and being silly, and I just hate it so much. Like, I don't even watch ghost programs anymore. Like, my family and stuff, they like watch them and go, oh my God, there was and I was like, yeah, but they're just being horrible. They're being horrible to spirit, good or bad. You just leave them alone. You know, yeah, again, with readings, like mediums, we do kind of leave spirit alone. Spirit will only come through just to say hello or what they got to say. I'm not going into their house and making problems. You know, I will go to people's houses if they ask me just to see what they have.
Yeah.
So I won't ask any names. I'll just say, right, there's an energy in the corner. We'll leave it there. Or maybe you shouldn't do that in your house because that's making them more angry. So that's what I do, the whole ghost hunting thing. Like, yeah, I get so many customers come to me saying, I feel like I've been jinxed. I've had nothing but bad luck. I'm depressed, or things have gone wrong in my family. And I'm like, yeah, have you done a Ouija board lately? Have you done a seance lately? Have you been into a haunted house lately? And sometimes they usually say yes. Or they've been near someone that has. And then they've drawn down on their energy because it's worse.
Right.
So it's very complex. But yeah, I hate it when it's advertised on the internet and stuff like, oh, we're doing a ghost walk or we're doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to be seeing you soon. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, it's good for my business. It's great. Yeah. Do you know what? Every time there's like an evening with, like, you know, these mediumship evenings with and clairvoyant stuff, I'm like, ooh, they're going to be coming to see me soon. Like, every single time. Because usually they'll go and either nothing comes out at all and they're disappointed, like, oh, I need to go deeper and see about my own life. Or something will happen where another spirit will attach to them and they'll be like, I need to go and see somebody. So I always just kind of sit back whenever I see those and go, yes, it could pay off for me, but yes, it's also really annoying that you're actually even doing that in the first place. So, or like people that stay in prisons overnight, I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, because I suppose that would just be an area for bad spirit as well.
Yeah, you may as well just go in a graveyard and just sit in someone's grave.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you doing? Just like me and your brother, we went to a prison in Dartmoor. And as soon as I walked through the door, I was getting about 1 trillion names come through, all these energies. I didn't feel bad, to be fair. In a way, they were probably thinking, oh, she's respectful of us. Yes, I've done bad things, but she's respectful. We'll leave her. So it was fine. It was okay for me. But other people that aren't respectful and do silly things, it's like, well, no wonder you've got bad luck. Like, why just leave them alone? Like, so I don't go in with any of that type of stuff. Yeah, it's nice to get. I think sometimes people want validation. There's something else out there. Yeah, that's why they do it. It's a bit like torturing yourself though as you're doing it. And that's fine, you know, if you want to do that. But just, I would say, if you're going on one, just be very calm. Just see what's there, and if nothing comes up, just don't force it. You know, there are things probably there, but if you respect them, they respect you, and you know, things can work out a little bit better for you.
Do you think you'd be more likely to see something if you weren't provoking them?
Yeah. If you just sit in the room quietly, don't say a name, don't do anything, then usually you'll probably feel something. Right. But then sometimes that could just be your subconscious coming through. Think you're heightened, like, I'm here to see or want to feel a ghost. Yeah. So I don't do that in readings. So it's so strange. It's kind of like, if it's here, it's here. Yeah. I don't really care. Even though it's my job and I need to see them, I'm just like, oh, well, if it doesn't come through, then I'm not meant to have it.
Have you ever had people come through to you and nothing's come through? Yeah. Like any clients?
Yeah, sometimes, but I just always worry when that happens, but not for myself. I used to worry. When I started out, I used to think, oh my God, I'm rubbish. I'm the worst like medium ever, or whatever. Now I don't. And now, because of things that have happened afterwards, I've been taught a lesson that don't see it as a bad thing necessarily for me. It's a bad thing for the customer.
Right. Because they're hiding something.
It can either be that they're hiding something. They're either a bad person.
Right.
And my guides and my spirits don't like them and they're shutting them down. Their family and spirit don't like them. Or it can mean something worse than that. It can sometimes usually be, for me, there's going to be a death. Spirit will shut down. Sometimes people, before they come to see me, if they cancel or whatever, I'm like, oh, it's not meant to happen. Something's going to happen in their family or to themselves. They're not allowed to be here.
Right.
If they come to see me and I'm shut down, I think they've got through the net because their spirits are like, yeah, they're just too busy. They haven't been able to catch them before they've come to see me. I had one customer once, she came to see me and there was absolutely nothing coming through. I was like feeling absolutely rubbish about it. And in the cards, it was all about her kids. Nothing about her at all. Nothing about her future. And her friend came to see me a few months later and said she died afterwards. And I thought, that's why. That was my first lesson. And yeah, I've had it before since, where I've seen somebody and I'm like, I'm just going to have to try and get as much as I can out of the cards because there's nothing else coming through for them.
Yeah.
A lot of psychics and mediums say, oh, you're just a blocked person. Yeah, you can get that. Sometimes when people just sit there with their arms folded, being really boring, you can be blocked. You need to be a bit more open. Not telling your life story, but just be more relaxed, I would say. You can be blocked in that way, but sometimes I think, why are you being blocked like that? It means you're not a very good person.
Right.
Don't like it.
Right.
I can tell as soon as somebody walks through the door if they're good or bad.
Right.
And then I panic when I feel like they're bad because I know that the reading's going to drag on for 30 minutes with hardly anything going on. That's why I panic. I think, oh my God, how am I going to drag this reading up? That's why I always do 30-minute readings. I never do an hour. And people are like, why don't you do an hour? And I'm like, it does tire me out, so I can't do an hour. But also, if I get people like that, I'm like, how can I drag that on for an hour? Like, it's just so bad.
And I guess, if you advertise an hour, you have to give them an hour.
You have to give them an hour.
Yeah.
So if it's 30 minutes and I do just run over by 5 or 10 minutes, that's fine. That's great. That's cool. But yeah, if you're there and you think, I've only got 5 minutes of content for you because something really big's going on, I can't tell you because you're just going to leave freaked out and frightened. So now I need to just see and get any little tiny morsel out of the cards that I can, which is usually about their children or their job. Or something like that, which is fine. That will keep them going. But sometimes I think, what's worse, I could tell them this terrible thing's going to happen and they leave really devastated, or they could leave and go, oh, that was boring. I think, well, I'd rather they left and said it was boring rather than I said something like, you do realise you've probably only got about a year left. Or you do realise that your mum or your dad or your partner's going to drop down dead in the next year or two. Or your child. I've had that before where people are like, oh, you didn't tell me that I was going to have a baby, or you didn't tell me that I was going to have a grandchild. I'm like, because I don't see their future in the next 10 years.
Right.
If I see a child being born, I also see the next 20 years sometimes, ahead. If I don't see that, I don't mention the child.
Right, okay.
Because it gets our hopes up too much. Go, oh, I'm going to have a baby, and then this going to have an amazing life. And I'm like, no, it's not. Some psychics will say, I don't see your child having children or whatever, and they can make what they will of that. But I won't say that. I'll just leave it out. I've had that before, going, oh, you didn't predict my grandson that I'm going to have. And I'm like, there is no grandson in the next 20 years.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I always say to people as well, ask, I like them to ask questions in readings, what's going to happen in my love life, or, my future and stuff. But if you're asking me a question 2 or 3 times again, or oh, you didn't tell me that, can you tell me more about that? I'm like, leave it. Do not ask it.
Yeah.
If I'm okay with answering a question, then fine. If I'm not, leave it alone, because you do not want to know the answer. And sometimes I do get really mad and I'm like, do you know what, you're just going to know it now. So yes, just always be careful what you ask. Don't ask me things I've already talked about as well.
Right.
If I've already talked about your job, don't mention it again.
Right.
If I've already talked about people's health and stuff, don't ask me again, because I will go deeper and you don't want to know the answer to it.
Right.
So if I haven't mentioned it and I seem like I'm in a good mood with cards and stuff, fair enough. It's fine. But there's just some things sometimes you don't want to know.
Right.
So again, just always, just be careful and don't say things like, oh, you didn't mention that, I was going to have a child or a grandchild. I'm like, I don't see it. So don't.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cringy.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of people could be like, oh, that medium was rubbish or whatever. But no, it's because sometimes you're not allowed to know certain things.
Yeah,
I've been to psychic mediums before, and I always leave things. I just feel like, no. One psychic said to me, you're not going to do anything at all in the next 2 years. Nothing at all. This just is blank. She said it's black. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's not good, yeah.
But if that was a client of mine, they were like, well, why?
Yeah.
I didn't ask. I was like, I'll just leave it up to her. And it was COVID.
Right.
And she said to me as well about a friend's child. She said, you're not going to see that baby.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to ask any more questions about that. And I know what happened with that as well. So yeah, that's why they know I'm a psychic sometimes, because they know like the normal people out there will dig deeper, whereas I'm not. I'm like, just leave it alone. But yeah, it's always just be careful out there.
Interesting. That's led on so well from that first question. I want to move on to one that's slightly fits more with what we were just talking about then, with spirit not appearing sometimes for you. Does spirit rest?
They can do. It depends. Like, I always sometimes call it a rest period.
Okay.
So when some psychic mediums don't believe this because they've got their own little things going on, but this is what I believe. So when you pass over, it's like a bit like here, like it's like starting a new job. So you're over there, you get involved, you talk to people, everyone's meeting up, it's all lovely. Sometimes spirit will have to go into rest when they pass. So they'll meet like maybe their mum or dad or another relative, but then what I say is like they'll have a lie down. So they can sense things going on around them, but they're still in that rest period.
Right.
So for instance, if you've had something terrible happen to them, like a car accident, or they've had cancer really bad for years and they've struggled on, they need that rest period. So sometimes they'll be lying down, like, and I can see them in a reading. I'm like, they're here. They can't talk. So someone in the member of their family will talk on their behalf.
Right.
So you get that quite a bit sometimes. Or sometimes they won't be asleep. They'll be awake and around in the background, but they're like, it's too heavy for me to come through right now.
Right.
So my mum's going to talk on my behalf. So I get that as well. So don't ever see it like as an offence. Sometimes spirits do need to have that rest period where they just settle in, just have a lie down and a sleep. And then they might wake up in a couple of days, months, years.
Right.
Depending on how they've died. And then some spirits, they don't. Like some spirits been through the most terrible, tragic things ever. They go straight through. They're like, no, I've got my family here. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm all right. But that's like anything, if you've been through, it's like having a really hard day at work and think, all I want to do is just go to bed. That's like spirit as well. Like, that was really tough before I pass. I just want 5 minutes and then we can reconvene later on. That's all it is. So yeah, I always say to people, don't ever get offended by their rest.
Okay.
But once they're out of rest, they do not go back into rest.
Right.
So that's why sometimes I even say to spirit, like, why don't you have a couple months and then come back? Just to get, used to everything. Just because, you won't get rest period again after that. You are in spirit and that is it. Until you die again if you come back and you're reborn. So, yes.
Interesting. Right, so on to the next question now before we go into some more tracks. You spoke a little bit earlier about ghost TV programmes and there's plenty of them out there, of course. But my question to you is, what have you watched that seems to be the best media examples of spirit? Is there any show that comes to mind that you've watched and been, that's quite realistic?
I used to watch Most Haunted all the time when I was younger as a kid. But then they had a psychic medium on there that was just so over the top that I was like, come on. Like, they were good. They were a good psychic medium, but they ruined it for themselves by being dramatic and falling on the floor and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that can happen, but not in that dramatic way. Like, you're more faint, really, rather than anything. So that used to be quite good, where they used to have the spirits slamming the doors and you see the orbs going around and everything. So I used to watch that quite a bit. There is a mediumship program that I used to love watching, and I think is an amazing medium, and that is Tyler Henry.
Okay.
I think he's really, really good. One of the best ones I've seen on TV. I know on TV a lot of it, what people don't understand when they come to see me as well, is edited quite a bit. And people have to sign, non-disclosure forms and things like that. But he's always good. Everything he says is always spot on. We work quite similarly as well. Like, I use cards, he doesn't. He just scribbles and drawings and things. But our energy's the same, how we're very rampant, very fast. And he said on one of them, the last one I watched that he did, he went to interview someone he used to work for and said, I can see fire everywhere, fire. And then literally the day after, the place burnt to the ground. Wow. And I was like, oh my God. But he wasn't saying in a nasty way or anything like that. It was just more in a casual, that's just what I do. It's in a casual way. And then it did. But Yeah, he's really good. Other ones I've seen, like other TV shows and stuff, I've not been too keen on. I've just thought, yeah, it could be a possibility, but TV shows are so edited.
Is there any like fictional representations that you think are quite true to life? From like any series or anything you've seen?
Yeah, so I watched, God, there's so many of them, like Vikings and stuff like that, where they have people coming back and visiting them in dreams, or, and they would come in the room or whatever. I love that. That is like true. That's how I see them sometimes.
Right.
They don't come through like how some people see them in ghost films, like all like disheveled, like zombies or whatever. That isn't spirit. But that's always really good. Peaky Blinders. The last season of Peaky Blinders, where the lady comes back, he's in the room, in the hotel room, and he can sense her, and he senses her spirit coming back. And when he sees the little girl, his little girl that died in the end, that for me is how spirit are.
Right.
Not all wispy and weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's real. You can feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
And that's like, I always think Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders in the end season, where he feels it in he can see his daughter, like, coming to see him, like don't quit, don't kill yourself, you're being tricked, like tells you little signs and symbols, are you being tricked, like you should look out for. That's what spirit are like. Right. But yeah, and like when his auntie comes back as well in spirit, you don't actually see her because she actually died in real life, the lady. But he sensed her in the room, and I thought that's very true to spirit. You don't always see them, you can sense them. So yeah, I always think that one was a really good one too. With spirit,
cool.
Just casual, but that's how I do it.
When it comes to like the ghost hunt programs and stuff like that, obviously they always have loads of different tools, whether it be a Ouija board, which like you said earlier, does have an effect. Yeah. But they've also got like EMP weird like beepers and stuff like that. Do you believe in any of that, or do you think that's a bit of nonsense?
They can work.
Right.
My mum uses one.
Okay.
She's got even there as well as a psychic medium. She does it back up, like just you can see a spirit. Oh, just check. Yeah, so they can, because it's on frequency. Right. So spirit will come through on energy. So that's why I say to some customers, you're more of an electric person or a water person. So if things go wrong in your house, it's either electrics or water, because spirit will be attached to both of those. They can manipulate the energy on both. So those little meters and stuff, they can work. Just because spirit will trigger them off with their electronic vibes that they've got around. It happens to people's phones. It happens on my phone. Like I was saying to you before we came on air, all my contacts have been deleted off of my phone, other than yours and Callum's. Yeah, yours are the only two numbers I have on my phone. That's spirit. Right. They can do stuff like that, so they'll do it with a counter as well. Right. Like make it. Sometimes those things they break quite easily as well. So that's because the frequency is so high. If you get a cluster of spirit, and it's the same with people's phones, computers, laptops, iPads.
So when technology goes weird, that's the culprit.
It's usually that, if you know it's not human error, it can be there's just stood next to it. That's like a counter, like when you're doing little ghost hunts and stuff, they're just stood next to it, and that's why it goes buzzes off. Yeah. It doesn't even have to be that fancy, to be fair, because like a phone isn't that fancy, and they can trigger that off. Like they could do it to mine now because I'm talking about it. That happened before to me. I was at my grandparents' house. We're talking about a relative of ours, and the fan blew up. Yeah, like properly blew up, and it was brand spanking new as well. So I always say, if you're talking about somebody, don't stand next to an appliance that's really expensive because it could go. But yeah, they can count people sometimes, but it just depends though. But it could pick up on any frequency in that room. Like you could have we've got all our studio equipment here. Yeah. If you're one of those counters in here, it will probably go off. Right.
Because you've said before, haven't you, that the fact we even talk about spirit a lot, obviously when we do this show and other shows too, spirit does come in and just listen. Yeah.
Yeah, they do, yeah. So, they listen to things or just be nosy and they creep about and stuff. So, yeah.
So if you ever see anything in the background of one of our cameras, ladies and gents, then that's what it is.
There's more on my side, to be fair. Then yours is quite nice and chill at the moment. It's more on it's always by that damn window that you've got behind us. It's probably our friend that waits at the gate. I was talking about him the other day. We always wave and say, "Can you open the gate, please?" And he opens the gate for us. But he's our security today. So like ours are just like, listen, they're fine in here in this building. So we're safe.
Nice. Well, I think that's probably quite a good place to get into some songs. We'll be back after these as I've got some more questions for Claire.
The Mystic Hour. Stars, spirits, and souls.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the Mystical Hour with me, Nathaniel, joined as always by Claire in the studio. We are halfway through one of our mystical chats, where of course a mystical chat is where I bring loads of questions to Claire, she answers them all for you, and I feel like we're going through a lot of good answers this week, Claire. I'm really enjoying this. So without further ado, let's get back into the questions. So the next one I've got for you, what do you make of religious experiences? Now, I have one in particular in mind, but this is meant to sort of encompass loads of different things. And before we get into this, because I feel like it could be a sensitive topic for some, we want to point out this is opinion, of course. This is opinion, and you are entitled to yours. So, this is Claire's opinion. So, Tyson Fury, right, is the example I want to go for. He, of course, had a big story where he was going to end his life, went in his car, started driving, and said God spoke to him, told him not to do it. What do you make of that? Do you think there could be spirit at play?
It can be, yeah. Like, with a lot of religious experiences I see, like, I'm not really a religious person. I'm more so, like, spiritual. I'm into, like, alternative, like, types of stuff. It can be true, but not necessarily always God.
Right.
So, yeah, like, when spirit talk to me or to other people, it's more like sometimes people can think it can only be God, it can only be Jesus or whoever it is, but actually sometimes it can be other people, or it could be Jesus, because Jesus was a person, but like for me and my beliefs, he isn't, sounds terrible, as high as people say is, and that's like for a lot of people, he's more so like what we would say, like a prophet or a saint, rather than like son of God, like that type of thing. So it could be God speaking to him, but more so it's like spirit talking to him rather than God, because he believes in God, like he's a big believer in that, so he would believe it's God. So it could be a number of things, but I would say it's probably more spiritual as well, that's coming through, but however people want to perceive it, that's how it is. Like a lot of religions started by hearing someone talk to them. But is that necessarily a god or someone higher? Or is that somebody else talking to them? Yes, sometimes it can be mental health issues as well, though. You do get people, this is why I'm very careful when I read people as well. You can't have anything like that going on because you can misinterpret it. So it could actually be a voice in your head that's more of a mental health problem, right? Not spiritual. So you've got to tell the difference. But it's difficult if you're going through something really bad. How can you tell the difference? That's like, schizophrenia. You're hearing voices in your head. Well, that's obviously a mental health condition. That is not being a medium or psychic or, a god talking to you. So, some people, when they say, oh, this spoke to me, I feel like, yes, you're a logical person. I get that. I understand that is probably spirit talking to you. If you're not that much of a logical person, you've got things going on, I'm like, I think you need to go and see someone. But then Tyson Fury has mental health issues.
Of course. As
well. So it could have just been a nice spark in his mind at the time, just at the right time.
I suppose what the real important thing to take from it is just the reaction that can evoke in someone. But it's interesting to think about what it could be. It's you've had that like through the histories of time. It's always been things people have seen or heard that have changed their mind on stuff, or even in the Bible and stuff, like Mary and Joseph. It's like it was God that spoke to them and all the rest of it. And it could have been. You never know. A lot of things I'm not allowed to know, or other people are allowed to know. Sometimes that's to be revealed nearer the time you pass, or if you go through a difficult time, right? Which I don't want to know. Rather not know. Rather just skip the difficult time.
Just have old Tom outside by the gate. I'm happy with him. I don't want anybody else. So it can be that. It can be. I would say more spirit probably than higher end. When I had my incident in the car, like weeks ago, I've been drawn to more different things since then.
Right.
You know, I'm usually always the type to wear crucifixes and stuff. I'm wearing more stars and more other things now. So yeah, I feel like I'm being drawn to other things because of it. But that is a similar thing to Tyson Fury. Like someone saying, "I saved you. I'm helping you. Follow me." And I believe there is some truth to that. Like Cat Stevens is one of them. He's a perfect example. Like he nearly drowned and died. And then he ended up becoming a Muslim. That's why he's called Yusuf Islam now, because he was like, that is the path I need to follow, because, you know, I saw this thing or something helped me and dragged me out and saved my life. Yeah. And I do believe there's something in that. You find that a lot of near-death experiences, don't you? People coming back with some sort of revelation. Yeah. It might not necessarily been a Muslim thing. It could have been an angel that saved him. But if that's the path he wants to follow, then good for him. That's fine. And he's not done badly from it at all. Like, he still does what he wants to do and everything. And, you know, the same with Tyson Fury. If anything, it's, like, made him better since then. Like, he's even more famous. And so, yeah, and they're not necessarily fanatics about it. That's just their private path that they want to follow. But, yeah, I always find that, like, you're always being driven by something or someone's helping you. Yeah. But for me, it's usually angels or whatever else I'm seeing at the time. But, yeah, it could be anything like that at all. Okay, great. So I think that's probably another place to go into another question now. I thought we covered that one quite well. The next one I've got for you, we've kind of already touched on this week. What do you make of cemeteries, right? Do you, because there's a lot of different questions that I've got about this. For one, what kind of energy do you get for them? Secondly, would a spirit be offended perhaps if you didn't go to their cemetery, to their gravestone? What do you make of it all? I like this question because it's a bit half and half, really. Like, so spirit are very half and half. Some spirits, when I talk to them in my readings and stuff, they're like, don't visit me. I'm not there. I'm just bones or ash. I'm not there anymore. Other spirits see it as a sign of respect. Right. You're making the effort to remember them by putting flowers on their grave or stones or whatever it is that you want to put on there. So that's fine. So either way. But the majority of spirit don't really care too much. Right. They're more like, remember me at home. I think as long as you remember them in some form. I always say, always remember on a birthday and usually Christmas or religious festival, whatever you celebrate. So that could be putting flowers out in the house, a picture of them out, or even just a chair. I do it with my friend Yvonne that died. She hasn't got a place where she is at all. So what me and my friend do, we go out on her birthday, we always make an effort and we always get her a drink. So that's a really good way of remembering spirit, because we haven't got a grave to visit or anything like that. And when I go into cemeteries, I love cemeteries. It's my ever I want to go for a walk. Josh hates it because I'm like, I love going to cemeteries. I really go. The energy's really heightened because of all the. It sounds horrible, but all the bones and the ash and stuff are so potent for energy. It's not necessarily spirits in the graveyard at all. It's just the energy of like the human So that's quite a positive energy then. Yeah. Well, sometimes not. I always get a really bad headache when I go into a cemetery. Right. Like proper, like full on. Have I got a brain tumor headache? Right. So yeah, it can be really, really bad, but I do enjoy it. I see them as more as quiet, happy places, cemeteries, just because they're peaceful. No one can hurt you. Yeah. And because when people get a bit freaked out by them because they think spirit can hurt them and stuff, and I'm like, they can't hurt you. I'm in control. They know I'm the boss of the cemetery when I walk in because I'm a psychic and I can, if anyone was lingering around by any chance, I could send them to the other side or have a chat, whatever. But yeah, I just feed off that energy. I love it. Yeah. Even though it makes me have a really bad headache. It's like drinking, slush puppies. Like, it's like having brain freeze. That's what it's like. It's like having too many slush puppies when I go into a cemetery, because that's like, for a medium, it's like, ooh, like there's all our people, like all in one place. And I love the history of it as well. I love looking at all the little stones and everything like that. But the energies, if you ever want to live anywhere, actually, next to a graveyard, it's like fine. Right, okay. It's nice and peaceful. I did when I used to live in North Petherton. I used to live right next to one. But it was the house that was the haunted thing. That was the pain in the backside, not the graveyard. If the house was brand new, then it would have been fine. But Yeah, in the graveyard, they would have all protected and stuff.
Right.
The thing is, with a graveyard, you've had a ritual put on it. So people say, you know, their little prayers and stuff before they lower them down. Or if you've had your ashes interned, they say a little prayer or a few little words, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a ritual. So that's saying, right, you're on your way, bye-bye. You're not allowed to mess around with anyone. That's why you won't get anything sinister.
Yeah.
So if you go into an old pub like on a ghost hunt, you're getting scratched and you're getting strangled and stuff. That's because they've had no ritual put on them.
Yeah.
Whereas in a graveyard, yeah, you could get bad spirits there, but because they've been anointed, so to speak, they can't do anything.
Almost like a security for you.
Yeah, and they're trapped as well. So if you do get stragglers going around, they can't follow you home necessarily. It's like a bit of a barrier. It's really strange. Bit like the program that's another program actually that I forgot to mention, Ghosts.
Right.
On BBC One. That is one of the best programs I've ever seen in my life, actually, to do with ghosts.
Interesting. I have to watch it.
Yeah, because it's true. They're all funny. They all do crazy things, and they can't leave the boundary of the house because a lot of them have died there or been buried there. So it's a bit like graveyards. They don't need the boundary if they're still in there. But a lot of people that are buried don't stay in graveyards. Like they've died. You know, their spirit's gone to heaven or whatever, and they're fine. But that's why I enjoy it, really. You just feed off the energy, or if someone wants to pop up, they can if they want to, but they'd be popping up from a place that's not from that graveyard though. It would be from somewhere else, and they pop in and they go back out again. The only place, you know, where you might get people lingering around for longer than they should do in graveyards is more plague victims,
right?
Because they're all just chucked in together. That's the only, like, you know, you go anywhere like concentration camps and stuff like that, if people are still buried there, they could still be there,
right? Not
necessarily crossed over properly,
right?
Luckily a lot of them have had proper rituals put on them, so that it sends them on their way. But it's so much energy that's like, how can you do all that many people? Like individually or a tiny cluster is easier. But yeah, it's more, you can tell if there's more like pits somewhere. Stinks as well. I can smell it whenever I go anywhere. There's like been a cluster of people buried in the same place. But they're harmless, so they won't hurt you too much.
Okay.
But yeah, it's only if something really, really bad's happened, or it feels a bit like haunted house, haunted land, then yeah, you're like doomed, really.
Basically, you can tell with your intuition type thing.
Yeah, you can tell if it's a good place or a bad place. That's why I would never visit anywhere that's got anything like where there's been mass killings and stuff.
Right.
Because the energy, like, has it been properly put away? Like that type of thing. Could they still be hanging around? Could they follow me home? But our little graveyards in this country, they're like fine. Like they're not too bad. It's if you go abroad or anywhere and someone's like genocide and stuff like that, don't visit there. Yeah. It's like Egypt as well. Like, I'm really against Egyptian stuff and things like that. Leave it alone. They've had rituals put on them, curses put on them probably. Now you're touching it and bringing it back. We went to a museum up north somewhere, and they had like a little mummy and things like that. And I said, just don't touch it. Leave it. I would just walk straight past it. Didn't like it at all. Like, they should not be taking them out and putting them in museums and stuff. They should leave them where they are. That's the same with like bodies and stuff they dig up in this country. Put them back. Yeah. don't. Or if you are going to put them anywhere, rebury them somewhere else and put a ritual over it. Yeah. Don't mess around with it, because you'll have nothing but trouble. You'll feel jinxed, or something worse could happen. So yeah, I always say to people, be careful with that. But yeah, like our little cemeteries, like nice.
Right. I think that's quite a nice answer as well, particularly the first part where you're saying it's not necessarily about the act of going to a cemetery and giving your respects to the dead, but it's more about remembering them. And I think that's nice for people to hear, because I think a lot of people would, you know, they still remember the dead, but you don't necessarily go to their gravestone every couple of weeks. No, yeah. So I think that's a real nice thing to hear, really. Yeah. So to go into the next question now, I've got two here, so we'll go into the second one first, which is about spirit again, obviously. Like we always say, spirit knows the future, right? Spirit tells you the future, or it helps you perceive what could happen. Yeah. But I suppose my question is, how far in the future do they know?
They know quite far. Some spirits know more than others. So some spirits are allowed to know more than others.
Right.
Because some can't be trusted, what they tell me. Sometimes it isn't always spirits saying that, though. I can feel it in the person's energy, so I can feel it in your energy. I wouldn't need, like, your granddad to come through to tell me that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. Like, sometimes it's a bit kind of lazy behaviour, really, if I ask a spirit to tell me. I'm like, oh, just tell me. I can't. I'm going to be looking at him all day trying to figure out what's happening in the next 20 years. So sometimes I'll do that, but I can go as far as I want to go. I can see people to their old ladies or old men. Yeah. You can just tell in their energy sometimes just by looking at them, like, you're going to live to your 90. Right. Or 100. And then other times think you've got 2 years. Make most of it. And then other times, it can be spirits screaming at me, going, tell them to do this, tell them to do that. Because I'm like, ticking, tick, 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 tick. It's like, we're running out of time. But they get told from above them. Mm-hmm. So spirit are like, basically, I always say the gossips. They always tell me things that are being told from above, or they can feel from above. And that could either be like what you would call angels or gods, God, whatever. Or even just reading someone the same way I would read someone's energy as well. So a spirit could, like your granddad could read you. Be like, oh, that's going to happen, Nathaniel, in 20 years' time, or that's going to happen. Right. And you could tell me or not tell me. Right. When that comes through. Loads of different ways, really. Also, like dreams as well. Spirit will come through my dreams quite a bit and tell me things. Like, I'm watching Game of Thrones at the moment. Like, I'm just getting into it late. And it's weird with Bran on there. Yeah, like, that's me. That's like my life. Like, I get that all the time. And I'm not called the Red Raven. Like, it should be. And be the king. You should give yourself, like, a cool alias like that. Yeah. But he sees things from his past to tell him about his future. Yes, yeah. And that's what I do too. So I'll see someone from my past as dead. Like, he sees his aunt, you know, and she's dead. But she's not necessarily telling him things. She's saying things what happened in the past. And he's like, oh, I get it. It's like riddles. Like, you've got to try and piece things together, and then it makes sense for the future. Right. So I'll see my nan, or I'll see a relative of mine that died before I was even born, and I'll go back because I feel like I've not seen that person before. Yeah. They've told me their name. And I'll be like, oh, they're telling me about this member of the family. They won't pop up just randomly, or they will just tell me to my face in my dreams. Right. And just say, yeah, Claire, watch out for this person, or whatever. Or it's a really fun way of, like, interacting with spirit, I think. Almost like getting riddles and having to... Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. It is Game of Thrones. Before Game of Thrones, I was doing that way before Bram was in Game of Thrones. It is like that, where you go through things again and again and again. Or I'll dream I'm back at school again. Oh, why am I back at school? Like, sometimes people get that. Right. But I'll dream of someone I used to go to school with, but we're that age. And then literally a couple of weeks later, I'll hear about them. Either see them or something about them that's happened. So yeah, you get taken back in time quite a bit. Like, I'll go back in different decades sometimes in my dreams, or I can smell it. Like, even when I'm doing readings for people, I can smell the past. Right. And I can see spirit from the past. Right. It's quite freaky, really. It's quite cool. I love it when it happens. So like, when I get, like what I said before, like maybe a boring reading, I'm like, oh, yeah, like, I want to do a really interesting one. Again. You feel like you've hit the jackpot whenever you do. It's scary though. Like, you get a lot of scary stuff like come through. Sometimes you think, oh, what are you doing now? Give me a break. So yeah, you do get that quite a lot. Nice. Well, we've covered a lot of different topics today, and to be honest, we are now out of time. We've got one last track, which fittingly is called Cemetery Gates by the Smiths. I do want to say, of course, thank you to all the listeners for tuning in once again. Don't forget, we put this episode out on YouTube. If you do want to see our visages, that'll be out on the AW Radio YouTube channel. And until then, we will be back on Tuesday with another Tarot Tuesdays. That's going to be great. Make sure to tune in. Thank you, Claire, for joining me in the studio once again, and enjoy this final track. Goodbye.